everybody, and welcome to another Board Game Breakfast. Yes, our last one was live. If you missed that one, go watch it last time. It was a lot of fun, but we're back onto normality, or at least as normal as coming to the end of the year does. That's right, today is the last day of November. Tomorrow we start December, which means this month we'll start taking a retrospective look at 2015 as a whole, and you'll see some videos from us come out over the course of this month. It also means we start gearing up for 2016. Our Kickstarter for the Dice Tower starts in January in 2016, but that's still a while away. We have a lot of things to talk about, and I think we need to get to the news. But before we get to the news, I will mention that today at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'll be doing a live Q&A, so if you want to come by and ask some questions and talk to me, then is the time to do it. But for now, the news. First of all, Cool Mini or Not is going to be bringing Potion Explosion to the United States. They continue their or not part of their name. This is a game about marbles and rolling down chutes, and basically think about Bejeweled, originally from Horrible Games. Very fun game. Fantasy Flight Games has announced Game of Thrones trivia game. Well, after the Star Wars Rebellion announcement, which was like, what? This one is more of a, oh, really? Okay, moving on. Steve Jackson has announced a card game based on Simon's Cat called Simon's Cat Card Game. So if you like Simon's Cat, here's a game about that. Modiphius Entertainment has announced Airfix Battles. Now, Airfix, from what I can tell, is a series of miniature airplanes, that's model airplane type things, and now this will bring them into a game. That's fascinating. Bring maybe some hobby people into the gaming, and this is also kind of a departure from what Modiphius has done so far, which is cooperative games and such. They're certainly moving in the gaming world. It'll be interesting to see where they are in a couple years. Board with Life announced season 2 is coming this February. In fact, they just put up the trailer for the new season. Board with Life, think of them as like an SNL of board gaming. They do skits and things about board games. Their first season was a few years ago. Then they did a Kickstarter for the second season, and then we waited. Of course, that's typical for Kickstarters, but now they're there, and it looks like they have special guest stars, too. Dice Masters. There's been a kerfuffle about this on the internet because essentially WizKids is no longer selling Dice Masters over the internet. It's not quite true. What happened is several people from overseas were buying through online gaming stores when they're supposed to be buying through the international distributors. And because of that, basically different agreements were being broken, so WizKids decided to stop selling online. Well, again, they sell 50 units or so to each online distributor. You know, each store gets 50 units, which for local stores, plenty. For a distributor, not nearly enough, so that basically shuts that down. It's an unfortunate situation. I certainly understand both points of view. Some people messed it up for everybody else, which is, again, unfortunate because you can't buy Dice Masters and stuff really online at this point. Artana is making a game based on the life of Albert Einstein, 50-year anniversary, and they certainly show an ability to make games based on historical preferences. New Science is probably the best of that lot. And finally, Games Magazine announced their Game of the Year. Games Magazine used to do the top 100 games of the year, which, again, was... I never was really that fond of Games Magazine when I found out that this award was basically one person picking all the things. But they stopped doing it in 2014. For some reason, it just didn't happen. Well, now it started up again in 2015, but instead of the top 100, they're just announcing the best games in different categories. The winner of Best Game of the Year is the Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Well, it's a very fine game. Didn't come out this year, but whatever. Runner-up was Sheriff of Nottingham, and there was a couple other runners-up in some other categories too. Card game, family game, strategy/puzzle. And they even announced like upcoming games. Like there was an upcoming thing, like for a strategy game, I think an upcoming was Scythe. Which is, okay, whatever. But that's interesting. We'll see if they continue to do this. I thought Games Magazine was kind of going the way of the dodo, but maybe they'll stick around for a while.
Hey everybody, Jason Levine with special guest
Emerson Matsuji.
And since I'm here in New York for Thanksgiving, Tom's not around, so we're going to handle the question and answer today. And today's question comes from Jason L. And his question is, how do you handle working with prototypes?
Okay, I guess I'll start with that.
Yeah.
So, when I first work on a prototype, I try to go as simple as possible. So, nothing fancy. Just try to get as quick and dirty of a prototype. No sense in putting a lot of graphics and artwork and things like that. You want to iterate quickly. That way, that you get the most playtest time doing so.
Well, for me, I don't make prototypes, obviously, but I look at a lot of prototypes for Dice Tower Essentials, and usually I get to look at the prototypes, or I have designers come up and say, can you look at my game? And what I try to do when I'm looking at them is to see, is there one dominant strategy or something broken, and try to find the little things to help them make the game tighter or better or more fairly balanced. So I try to look for if there's something that would unbalance the game.
And then when I test other people's prototypes, one of the things I always do is I always ask the designers, what kind of an audience that they're trying to target, what kind of an experience that they want to have. And I also ask, what do they want to get out of the playtest? That way, when we play the prototype, we're kind of targeting our feedback to help that designer, try to achieve what he's trying to work towards. So.
And I'd love to make my own, but you make more prototypes than I do, so by a lot. So, do you find it fun to work on them and design new things?
Yeah, that's one of the things that is satisfying is that you get to work with your hands. You get to try to build things. I spend a lot of times cutting out cardboard pieces and sticking slips of paper into card sleeves. It's a bit time consuming. It's a tedious part about it, but it is satisfying, especially when you get to take it out. Take it to your friends, you get to test it out with them and watch it crash and burn.
Well, how about you guys at home? You guys can write in, in our comments and let us know how you feel about either creating your own prototypes, what you do, or about just playing other people's prototypes. And of course, if you have more questions and answers, you can send them to dicetower@gmail.com.
Okay, welcome friends. Today we have a very special Whitleypedia. Well, all Whitleypedias are special if you think about it. But this is particularly special in that we are going to do the first and hopefully only ever unboxing here live for all of you. Now, unboxing is very popular on YouTube, and of course we as board gamers get a lot of stuff in boxes sent to us. Hopefully all of them purchased from CoolStuffInc.com. This, however, is something I won at the charity auction at Board Game Geek Con last year. They did an auction to benefit the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Dallas. This is from Panda Games. What they were offering were specialized meeples. We're going to open them here for you right now. So when I won this auction, I was able to design my own meeples. Okay, here we go. Alright, now first off, generic martial arts themed turtle type characters, which I'm sure don't infringe on any intellectual property of any kind.
Heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
Oh, look at this. We've got some little wizard meeples. I always need wizards for Lords of Waterdeep or whatever. See this guy. And then, of course, a pink one for the ladies. Now, there's an episode of The Office where Michael dresses up like a prisoner.
I'm Prison Mike. You know why they call me Prison Mike?
So I got some specific Prison Mike themed minis. You never know when you might need those. Okay, and then this is really the piece de resistance. What I had made for my final set of specialized meeples were individual Jared themed meeples. See, there he is, long sleeve shirt and the shorts. Oh my gosh, don't you just want to play board games with Jared themed meeples? Anyway, there you go. Unboxing. Future of YouTube since 2005.
Greetings everyone, this is Dean with Board Game Social, and stop before you mute me or skip over me out of pure hatred and disgust. Let me say, Ashes, still available to win. The contest is still going on. Check out Board Game Social on YouTube and Facebook. I do need to acknowledge that I do not know for a fact that social media backlash or negative comments were the sole reason that Bedford didn't fund the first time on Kickstarter. In the course of discussion with some other people in the comments, I realized I didn't do a very good job articulating my point last week, so let me try to do it better this time. And let me say this, I don't care what game you want to make, what the theme of it is, it doesn't matter to me. All right. If a publisher wants to spend their money, their capital, and put their name on it, if a designer wants to spend their time and effort designing it, if a gamer wants to go out and spend their money and buy it and game it, they should have the ability to do that. We should not prevent that from happening. Now, I will say, if you're going to use Kickstarter as that avenue of approach, then yes, you do open yourself up to various forms of, or various obstacles in that course. One of the things that I respect the most about the Dice Tower and Tom, I don't think I've ever heard them say that you shouldn't be allowed to play the game that you want to play. It may not be for them. They have no interest in playing it. They would never buy it. They may never review it. They may never speak of it. But they don't force their opinion upon you. And I know the gaming community is waiting to find out, what is Tom going to decide? Marvel, Munchkin. Marvel, Munchkin. Marvel, Munchkin. We wait, Tom. What will win out, your geekiness or your hatred?
Hi, welcome to Painting 101. I get tons and tons of emails, and I'm very thankful for all of them. But one of the biggest questions I get is, what is paint and what paint should I buy? So let's take a look at the big board and learn a little bit about paint. Now, paint is made up of 3 basic compounds: pigment, binders, and solvents. Let's start with pigments. Pigments are color chemicals in the paint. They come from all kinds of different chemicals that make the different colors. Iron oxides make yellows, reds, orange. Think of how iron turns to rust. Chromium oxide makes paint that's green. And black is basically carbon. Think of toast. When you burn toast, all it is that compound. Paints also contain substance called binders. Their job is to glue the pigment particles to one another, but also to make them stick to the surface you're painting. Some binders are made of natural oils, such as your oil paints, linseed oil. But most now are made of synthetic plastics. Mixing a pigment and a binder together, all you're going to get is a thick, goopy substance that's difficult to spread. That's what using a pigment and binder is like. It's the reason why paints have a third major chemical component called a solvent. As its name suggests, this solvent is something that dissolves something else. The solvent's job is to make the pigment and the binder into something thinner. Essentially, what happens with those 3 components, if you add more of the solvent, you'll be able to thin your paint. If you add too much of the solvent, you actually break the binder and the pigment completely apart. To go for a more extensive look on how paint works, go to my channel, Robert Oren, and you'll see an extensive look on why paint is paint. Until next time, I'm Rob Oren. Have a great week.
So what's coming out from the Dice Tower this week? Well, the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about is looking back at 2015 as a whole, and this week we'll be talking about our top 10 surprise games. We'll also be putting out plenty of reviews. Some of the examples of reviews are Dark Stories, Hungry as a Bear, Ninja Camp, Exoplanets, My Village, The Curse of the Black Die, Andromeda, the expansion for Abyss, Estoril, Mo Money, and Brick Party. So there's several of those videos coming out this week. And of course, videos from all the other folks, Sam and Z. And you'll also be taking a look what else is coming up this week. Our podcasts and other things like that. And you can find out there's lots of podcasts in our channel, enough for you to listen to one every day, I think, and always have something new to listen to. And all that can be found at Dicetower.com. If you want to go straight to the list of all the podcasts, you can go to DicetowerNetwork.com. All right, let's move on.
Hello, Chaz Marler coming to you this time not from Pair of Dice Paradise, but fresh from a 6-month self-imposed exile in a hole in the ground, with my eyes closed and my fingers in my ears under a hard rock cafe. And just why have I been in hiding? Well, you may not have heard this, but on December 18th, a new Star Wars movie is going to be released. I mean, this is the first potentially Gungan-less Star Wars movie in over 30 years. But even sequestering myself under a contemporary music theme restaurant, it's still been nearly impossible not to have the movie spoiled. I mean, the hype for this movie is everywhere, and I don't want to succumb to all this hype because I'm already going into this movie with some skepticism. So what could possibly lure me out from my hiding place a few weeks early? Well, the reason I've emerged is because tomorrow I'm going to start playing Pandemic Legacy, a game that's received its own fair share of hype, propelling it up to number 7 on the Board Game Geek list of all-time best games, less than 50 days after being released. Just like with the film of Interstellar Conflict, I can't help but wonder if all this hype is going to diminish my enjoyment of the game, because it may be artificially setting my expectations for it too high, ultimately leading to disappointment when it might not be able to live up to it. And these expectations, they swing both ways. Whether it's disappointment caused by a game by a designer with an otherwise fantastic track record, or the delight of a game from a usually mediocre franchise that veers sharply in an unexpected fresh direction. For better or for worse, the juxtaposition of our expectations versus experience has a direct influence on our judgment of a game. Now, at first, it would seem the simple solution is just to go into the game completely objectively. Unfortunately, really, come on, that may be impossible, because even after living in solitude beneath the nation's #1 rock and roll dining destination for over 6 months, we'll still make judgments about a game the moment that we see its components, even its box art, even its name. So maybe, instead of trying in vain to experience these things completely objectively, perhaps instead I should just take solace in the fact that even if both Star Wars Episode 7 and Pandemic Legacy both just crash and burn and fail miserably, at least there's a really good chance that both of them contain a complete lack of Gungans, which I think that we can all agree is something positive that no amount of hype can diminish.
Hello, and welcome back to Board Games and Bow Ties. My name's Mike, and this is just another segment in my series on Gateway Gaming. A lot of my gaming time is spent introducing new people to new games, and so these are just a few tips that'll hopefully help you be successful when you do the same. We've talked so far about picking the right game, explaining the rules, comparing this new game to other games that our friends may have played, but what if we've done all this right and halfway through our rules explanation, our friends seem completely disengaged? This is one of the hardest parts about introducing new people to new games, is that sometimes, despite our best efforts, it's just not working. And so the tip this week is don't be afraid to give up. I know most of us don't want to do that, especially when we are excited about a game, but sometimes it really is the best thing for our group. Gauging the interest of the people we're playing with is super important. Don't be afraid to give up on a game and try something else, especially if you haven't even started playing. The goal of games is to have fun with our friends, and if we're the only ones at the table having fun, that kind of defeats the point. Now, this doesn't mean give up right away at the first groan or sigh. I often have to ease my friends into new games I'm teaching, but be aware. Know your group and know what they like. Have them help you pick out the game by giving short explanations, but don't be afraid to give up and move on to something else. This little tip has saved me hours of yawns and sighs, and it's probably the only reason some of my friends still want to play games, because I was willing to move on from something they probably weren't interested in. My name's Mike, and this has been Board Games and Bow Ties. We'll see you next time.
When I was a kid, it was not cool to be a nerd. If you remember in the 80s, being a nerd or a geek was something that was kind of vilified to some degree. And the image of the nerd was a skinny guy with glasses and who liked computer games and comic books and things like that. I certainly fit the bill perfectly. I didn't really mind that much because I liked the stuff enough that I didn't care that people made fun of me for being a nerd. But sometimes it's not always being, not everyone enjoys being made fun of all the time. As time went by, the image of a nerd has become cool. It's cool to be a nerd these days, except for the fat nerd. Think comic book guy from The Simpsons, or just, anytime now, the fat nerd, the guy who sits in his basement and plays computer games. Now, it is true that, the fat guy playing, being in anything is a stereotype that's found in gaming. And if you go to a gaming convention, a cursory glance will show you that there is some truth to that, right? There's just, if you're going to be really involved in a hobby like board gaming or something, it's pretty easy for this just to have this sit-down lifestyle and not be really involved. When I got married, I think I weighed 150 pounds, maybe? And I still was 6'4", so I was a bit of a rail. And even then, I had gained some weight in college. I was 130 pounds, which was made me look pretty skinny. As time went by and I became a teacher, I've gained weight over the years, and I was not too heavy, but when I came back from Korea and came to the plethora of American food that existed, I certainly did gain some weight. It's really interesting, the whole thing about being fat. See, I'm very fortunate in one sense because I'm 6'4", and when you're 6'4", very few people walk around and call you fat. Well, except for some of the YouTube commenters. Thank you, love you guys. But very few people call you fat because you don't look it, and because when someone's shorter and weighs as much as I do, they're going to be much more rotund. But I'm someone who likes to poke fun at myself. I don't usually mind when people make fun of me, and this, it's one of the things I think that works about our show with Sam and Z and different people. They can always make fun of me as long as I can dish it back out a little bit. That's something that I always found fun because there's very few things that really bother me, so most of it just floats off me, which is good because of some of the stuff on the internet. The fat thing, though, it's kind of weird, though, because I used to be thin, and people would laugh at me and call me skinny. Well, when you turn sideways in the shower, does the water hit you? When I was in college, I hated taking my shirt off when we played a shirts versus skins game in soccer because you could see all my ribs. But somewhere over the period of time, I became fat. Now, you could say, Tom, you're not that fat. And that's what's interesting about being overweight is that so many people kind of say, it's no big deal, it's no big deal, it's no big deal. And if you live in America, everyone else is there too. And there's also kind of this annoyance because when people do say something about it, they sound so self-righteous. Like, well, I run 64 miles every day and I only eat things made with soy milk and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't seem like their lives are fun at all, but hey, they're thin. And we kind of have that mindset. And there really is, an unhealthy obsession with being thin. In some aspects of America, especially many women, you're only beautiful if you're thin, and I certainly don't agree with that. But I'm fat. I am. I know this, and it's been bugging me for a while, so I finally decided that I'm going to do something about it. At this point in time, when I weighed myself last, I weighed 285, which is the most I've ever weighed, and that really has bothered me. Look at that. I've eaten the guy who I was in college, and I'm twice him now. Now, granted, probably 140 is somewhat unhealthy, but I want to lose weight. So why am I talking about this in Tom Thinks Board Games? Well, for one major reason, accountability. I've decided, and I'm going to, I've decided in the past that, hey, I'll do diets, I'll do different things and such, and I'll lose weight. And if you remember, when my son died 5 years ago, when Jack died, right after that, I was looking for something to focus on, and I focused on losing weight, and I lost a lot of weight at that point in time. And then once I got really involved with board gaming again, most of it came back. And a lot of that is out of sheer laziness. Now, there's a couple things that I'm not looking for. One, I'm not looking for people to email me and say, hey, I have this new weight loss thing. I know this idea. This worked for my grandfather. This worked for this is what I did for me. I understand that. Here's the deal. I know what to do. It's just that it's easy to slip off the wagon, to fall off the wagon to some degree and do things. Like, I'm pretty hungry right now. But I just had lunch. I know it's breakfast, but I know the shadow. We actually record this at different times. But anyhow, it's easy to get off that. It just needs self-determination. So I don't really know. I know what I need to do. I just need to get it done. Secondly, I'm not projecting me onto anyone else. Right? I'm not saying anyone else is lazy because they're fat or this person's fatter than me. I've done that my whole life where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kind of fat, but I know someone who's fatter than me, so it's okay. No, and I'm not saying that those people are wrong. People have different things that they're dealing with, has nothing to do with me. So, I want you guys to keep me in check though, because you may meet me at conventions. Next September, I'm turning 40. I don't know, that's a changing point in my life, right? When a lot of people turn 40, I would like to have lost 40 pounds at least by that time. I'd like to lose a lot more than that, but we'll make it simple. I said I weighed 285. Let's try to go down to 240. All right? I think that's a reasonable goal. That gives me several months. I might even do better than that. I would like to do better than that. And so if you meet me at a convention and you want to take me out to eat, I'll accept your offer, but don't buy me the humongous meal. Don't offer me candy when you see me. And that's because I always find it weird, you know, if you know someone's an alcoholic, would you go up to them all the time and say, hey, you want a drink? Oh, come on, you can take a drink. But that happens to people. Like I'll say, hey, I'm on a diet, I can't eat any cookies. And people will be like, are you sure? These are really good. Just try one. It's really an odd thing. But I'm going to try to do this because, well, one, I need to fit in my clothes. Two, I want to be healthier, and I know vastly that the thinner you get, the healthier life you will live. Now, again, I'm not talking about ultra skinny. I'm talking about not being obese. And three, it just makes things better. I'm a good example for my kids, too. How can I tell them to watch what they eat when I'm not doing so? Ha! This seems like a very serious, and now for a very special Tom Thinks. And I don't mean it to be that way, but each week I'm going to put a little number, you'll notice I put at the beginning of board game of Tom's Thinks, of my weight. And I'm going to put it there each week. And so that way you guys can encourage me if I'm losing weight, and if I'm not losing weight, encourage me again to do better. It's really annoying sometimes when someone just goes, there's those fat losers. And I'm like, oh, I'm not fat. Yeah, I'm a loser, but I'm not fat. But I am, right? I really am. I've been wearing these big shirts like this lately because they're the most comfortable thing. I might wear them when I'm thin too, but just little things like that. And I don't want to be part of the stereotype. I'm my own guy. I can do what I want. I'll wear my hats. I like suspenders. I don't mind still being labeled the nerd. But it's time to make this change in my life. And so I thought if I made it very public here on this show, then there's not much going back, is there? I hope not. Let's see how this goes.
Hello there, my name is Niels from Souls Brettspiele, and today we are talking about my favorite and my worst mechanism for another game, and this time we're talking about Hanabi from R&R Games. Yes! My favorite in the co-op game Hanabi is by far the fact that you cannot see your own cards. However, you can see the cards of the other players, but you never see your own cards. What a brilliant idea for a game. The thing I really don't like on Hanabi is, and it's really a minor thing. Let's say I will or I have to discard a card and I decide this card. And when I'm touched that and before I'm flipping that over, someone said, ooh. Why? Because it's a 5. That's an illegal move. That's cheating. There is no communication when I'm discarding a card. However, it always could happen, and it always will happen, that there's someone cheating this way. I never figured out a really good way to avoid that, but anyway, this is so minor, I really like that game. And again, like always, I want to hear your personal comments on your favorite mechanism or your worst mechanism for Hanabi from R&R Games. Please let me know. My name is Niels, Cyril's Brettspiele, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Hi, I'm Mike Canavan, and this is my game room. I've been very fortunate that we recently renovated the entire basement, which allowed me to renovate the game room. We put in custom cabinets, floor to ceiling. This is adjustable height, which is great for all little odds and ends. The rest of them are fixed at 13 inches, which I think is perfect for board games. I've been very happy and would recommend to everyone that we put in some cabinets. I've got 3 nice big large cabinets. Not only do they allow you to get kind of the clutter that game rooms tend to collect out of sight, but it gives you some other flat surfaces in the room for decorations, or over here we typically put the box of the game that we're playing, so it doesn't have to be on the floor or on the table. And then over there is another surface that we put snacks and drinks on and whatnot. My game table, I love. It's my old dining room table. It didn't fit in the dining room in the new house, so I got it down here. It is actually bigger, but we keep it small and pushed up against the wall, which allows seating for 5 really perfectly, which is great for most games. And in this configuration, there's tons of space in the room, so this person can easily get up comfortably and get around the table without having to bump into people or shimmy past chairs and go to the bathroom, which is really great. For lighting, we put in 15 LED lights, which makes it super bright in here any time of day, but it's also a warm light, so it's not real bad on glare, and it's easy on the eyes. I chose not to put a mini fridge in here, just really for kind of aesthetics. I tried to go a little bit classier feel, that's kind of the theme, and I think it worked out pretty well. We do have a fridge up in the basement and the pantry area right outside the door, as well as the bathroom right outside the door, which makes everything really convenient. And that's my game room. I hope you liked it.
A lot of people come in and they ask us for popular games. And well, I'm here to tell you something you probably already know, and that is a popular game is not necessarily a good game. It may not even be the right game for your customers. Judging by our sales records and the amount of table time that these games get, some of our most popular games include Cards Against Humanity, Uno, Jenga, Monopoly, Candyland, The Game of Life, Guess Who, and of course, Munchkin. Now don't get me wrong, popularity and quality aren't mutually exclusive, but these games aren't popular because they're objectively good games. They're popular because of name recognition. They've been around forever, or they were so huge when they came out that even my parents have heard of them. Let's start with Munchkin. Munchkin from Steve Jackson Games is a juggernaut and is the undisputed king of the adventurers behaving badly dungeon crawl genre of game. Now, if people want a game about adventurers being jerks to each other, then they should try Welcome to the Dungeon. If you are looking for a game with a fantasy theme and wacky card names and chaotic action, instead of Munchkin, try Epic Spell Wars Battle Wizards of the Duel at Mount Skullsfire. And finally, if you want a game that has dungeon critters behaving badly, but you don't want a game that packs 20 minutes of fun into 2 hours of gameplay, then maybe try 3 Cheers for the Master. So if you've got friends or customers who are hooked on Munchkin, try some of those games. And next time, we'll talk about how to replace Monopoly. Of course, if you've got a popular game that you think needs replacing, feel free to leave a comment below, or tweet us at Snakes and Lattes on Twitter, or send us an email to asksnakes@snakesandlattes.com.
Hey folks, so that's it. A really great episode, jam-packed, full of great contributions. Once again, I'd like to say a big thank you. I didn't get to say a huge thank you last week in our Thanksgiving episode, so I want to do a bit of that now. A huge thank you to all our contributors. Some have been in the past, some are here now, and I'm just thankful for all of them. They do a great job. Some of them put something out every single week, and that's just always amazing to me, and I'm very thankful for that. Even if they put one out once in a while, it's still great, and I think, honestly, that Board Game Breakfast is one of the best board game shows that's ever been made, and not because of anything I've done, but because of those contributors. I also like to thank Sam and Z. They've been great. They've really been a huge help to me this year on the Dice Tower, and I think it's going really well. A thank you to my daughters for putting up with me, working from home, and just helping me with games and things around their already busy lives. A thank you to Eric Summerer, who many of you do not know, but you should listen to the Dice Tower audio podcast because he's my host there and does a great job on that and also helps out with the audio. A big thank you to you all who listen and watch the show. I so appreciate everybody who makes comments and comes in and talks about the different things and all the different things that contributors mention in the show. That really makes the show just that much more interesting with your feedback, and we're thankful for that. And finally, I did not forget her. I'd like to thank my wife, who was very patient and loving, and I have tried to get her on this show many, many times, and she has no interest of being in front of the camera. but behind the scenes, she is amazing, and it's because of her that I can do anything here. So a big thank you to everybody. Guys, I'll see you next week. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff in stock at CoolStuffInc.com.